The 40 warships of the Dominion moved through the darkness of space like a school of massive metal fish. They passed Jupiter without stopping. They ignored the moons of Saturn. Their destination was clear, and Fleet Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship with his hands behind his back, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his viewing screen. Earth, the humans called it Earth, had studied this species for 3 years before making his decision to conquer them. They were young. Their space travel was primitive. They had only reached their own moon a few generations ago, and their fastest ships could barely leave their own solar system. By the standards of the galaxy, they were children playing with toys. But they were also unusual, had noticed this early in his research. Most young species sent signals into space hopping to find friends. They broadcast messages of peace and curiosity. They wanted to be discovered. Humans did this too at first, but then they stopped. 50 years ago, their signals grew quieter. 20 years ago, they almost disappeared completely. Thought he understood. The humans had realized they were alone and had given up hope. This was common among young species. They dreamed of meeting others like themselves, and when no answer came, they turned inward. This made them easy targets. "We are in position, Commander," said his second officer, a tall female named, "holding station beyond the fourth planet." "Good," said, "prepare the transmission." The Dominion had conquered 37 species over the last 800 years. The method was always the same. Arrive with overwhelming force. Demand surrender. Give them time to understand their situation. Most species surrendered within hours. The few that resisted were crushed quickly. Had personally overseen the conquest of 6 worlds, and not once had he faced a real challenge. Humans would be no different. The transmission was simple. It explained who they were. It explained that resistance was pointless. It explained that the humans had 72 hours to surrender their planet, their resources, and their freedom. If they obeyed, they would be allowed to live as servants of the Dominion. If they refused, they would be destroyed. Watch the transmission beam toward Earth at the speed of light. It would reach them in minutes. Then the waiting would begin. On Earth, the message arrived at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Greenwich Mean Time. It was received by 17 different monitoring stations around the world. Within seconds, it was forwarded to the United Terran Council, the governing body that handled matters of global security. Admiral was asleep when his phone rang. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had served in the military for 40 years, first as a young soldier, then as an officer, and finally as the Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. He had seen many things in his long career. He had prepared for this moment his entire life. "How many ships?" he asked without greeting. 40, sir," said the voice on the other end. "They are holding position near Mars. I will be there in 20 minutes. Dressed quickly, his wife, who had been married to him for 35 years, watched from the bed. She did not ask questions. She knew that when this call came, it would be the most important moment in human history. "Be careful," she said quietly. Paused at the door, he looked back at her and nodded once. Then he left. The emergency meeting of the United Terran Council took place in a bunker beneath the mountains of Switzerland. Defense Minister was already there when arrived. She was in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a reputation for thinking faster than anyone in the room. She had been preparing for alien contact since she was a young analyst in military intelligence. "Have you seen the message?" she asked. "I read it on the way here," said. 72 hours. They think we are helpless." "Good." The other council members arrived over the next hour. Presidents and prime ministers, generals and admirals, scientists and diplomats. They gathered around a large table and watched the alien message play on the screens around them. When it finished, there was silence. "What do we do?" asked one of the presidents, a nervous man from a small European country. "Should we try to negotiate? Perhaps we can." No, said. His voice was calm but firm. Everyone turned to look at him. We knew this day would come, he continued. We have known for 50 years. We have prepared for 50 years. Every silent satellite, every hidden weapon, every secret program, all of it was for this moment. He looked around the table. They expect us to beg. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to act like frightened children. Nodded slowly. What do you suggest? Silence, said. Complete and total silence. We turn off every broadcast, every signal, every communication that could reach their ships. We make them wait. We make them wonder. And while they wonder, we prepare. Prepare for what? Asked another council member. For war, said simply, but not the kind of war they expect. We will not fight them with speeches and threats. We will not give them the satisfaction of seeing our fear. We will be quiet. We will watch. And when the time is right, we will show them exactly what humanity is capable of. The vote was unanimous. Within the hour, Earth went silent. In orbit around Mars waited. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 12. His officers checked their equipment. That the message had been received. It had. Earth had definitely heard them. But Earth did not respond. Found this strange. Every species responded. Some begged for mercy. Some made threats they could not keep. Some tried to negotiate, but all of them said something. All of them reacted. The humans said nothing. Perhaps their communication systems are damaged, suggested. They received our message, said. Their systems are working. Then why do they not answer? Stared at the blue planet on his screen. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he did not recognize. It was not fear, exactly. It was more like confusion. He had conquered 37 species, and not one of them had ever responded to his ultimatum with silence. He told himself it meant nothing. Humans were primitive. They were probably just too frightened to speak. They would surrender soon enough. But somewhere deep in his mind, a small voice whispered a warning. Silence was not always weakness. Sometimes, silence meant something else entirely. Ignored the voice. He had 40 warships and weapons that could turn cities to ash. He had centuries of experience and the might of the greatest empire in the galaxy. What could a silent planet possibly do against all of that? He would learn the answer soon enough, and by the time he understood, it would already be too late. 48 hours had passed since the ultimatum, and Commander stood on his bridge surrounded by confusion. His officers checked their instruments again and again. They sent test signals to verify their equipment was working. Everything was working perfectly. Earth simply refused to speak. This is not normal, said his second officer. We should have received dozens of transmissions by now. Panic broadcasts, military signals, government communications, something. Agreed, but he did not show it. A commander must never show doubt in front of his crew. They are frightened, he said. They have shut themselves away like animals hiding from a storm. Perhaps, said, but she did not sound convinced. On the planet below, Colonel Minu walked through the corridors of a bunker that officially did not exist. It was built 3 kilometers beneath a mountain range, connected to dozens of other hidden facilities through tunnels that ran across the entire continent. He had spent 15 years of his life down here, preparing for a day most people thought would never come. Now that day was here, and Minu felt strangely calm. Status report, he said as he entered the main command center. All systems are online, sir, replied Lieutenant Sumi, a young woman who had been recruited straight from university 5 years ago. She was one of the best technical minds in the facility. Silent Thunder is at 93% capacity. We expect full power within 4 hours. And the satellites? Waking up now. We have 17 orbital platforms coming online and another 42 in the asteroid belt. They have not detected any of them. Minu nodded. This was the heart of humanity's secret defense program. For 50 years, while the world above went about its normal business, thousands of people had been working in hidden facilities around the globe. They built weapons that did not officially exist. They launched satellites disguised as space debris. They hid military platforms inside asteroids and moons. The aliens thought humanity was primitive. They saw a species that had only reached the moon and assumed that was the limit of human capability. They did not know about the secret programs. They did not know about the technology that had been developed in shadows. They did not know that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first realized they were not alone in the universe. And humanity was not going to tell them. In a facility on the dark side of the moon, Doctor watched the alien fleet through a telescope that was more powerful than anything the public knew existed. She was 41 years old, with tired eyes and hands that shook slightly from too much coffee and too little sleep. She had been the lead scientist of Project Silent Thunder for 8 years, and everything she had worked for was about to be tested. "Their formation is standard," she said into her communicator. 40 ships arranged in a defensive pattern. The flagship is the largest one near the center. "Can you identify their communication frequencies?" Ask's voice through her earpiece. "Already done. They use a form of quantum encryption, but it is not as advanced as they think. We cracked it 6 hours ago." "Then you know what they are saying to each other." "Yes, Admiral, they are confused. They expected us to panic. Instead, we disappeared." Allowed himself a small smile. The plan was working. On the flagship made a decision. If the humans would not come to him, he would go to them. He ordered 3 reconnaissance drones to fly toward Earth. They were small, fast, and carried cameras that could see a single person from orbit. They would tell him exactly what the humans were doing. The drones launched and accelerated toward the blue planet, watched their progress on his screen. They crossed the orbit of the moon. They entered Earth's outer defenses. They flew closer and closer to the planet's surface. And then they vanished. One moment they were there, transmitting images of clouds and continents. The next moment they were gone. No explosion, no debris, no signal of any kind. They simply stopped existing. "What happened?" demanded. "Unknown, Commander," said one of his officers. "There was no weapon fire, no energy signature. They just disappeared." Felt the confusion in his gut grow into something darker. This was not how conquests worked. This was not how primitive species behaved. He had expected the humans to cry and beg and run. Instead, they were silent, invisible, and apparently capable of destroying his drones without leaving a trace. "Send more," he ordered. "Send 10 this time, different angles, different speeds." 10 more drones launched. 10 more drones vanished. In the underground bunker, Colonel Menu watched the data stream across his screen. 20 drones destroyed, he reported. They are using kinetic interceptors from the orbital platforms. Clean kills, no signatures. "How long before they figure out what is happening?" Ask's voice from the main council chamber. "They cannot figure it out," Menu said. "Their sensors are not advanced enough to detect our platforms. As far as they know, their drones are vanishing into thin air." This was the genius of humanity's defense strategy. For decades, humans had studied the mathematics of alien detection. They knew what kind of sensors most species used, what frequencies they scanned, what materials they could see, and they had built their weapons to be invisible to all of them. The thought they were looking at a helpless planet. In reality, they were surrounded by weapons they could not see, operated by an enemy they did not understand. On the moon, Doctor continued her work. The drones had been easy to destroy, but that was not the main objective. The main objective was something far more dangerous. "Virus upload is at 78%, said one of her assistants. "Good, keep it slow. We do not want them to notice." When they had broadcast their ultimatum, they had opened a channel between their ships and Earth. They thought this channel was one way. They thought they were speaking to humans, not the other way around. They were wrong. Hidden inside the acknowledgement signal that confirmed Earth had received the message was something else. A program. A virus. It was not a simple thing that would crash their systems. It was something much more subtle. It had been designed by the greatest programmers on Earth, tested for years, and perfected down to the smallest detail. The virus did not attack. It listened. It learned. It spread slowly through the network, copying itself into backup systems and secondary computers. It studied how their ships worked, how their weapons aimed, how their engines fired. And when the time was right, it would take control of everything. They had no idea. Their security systems were designed to stop attacks, not passengers. The virus looked like normal data, like background noise in their systems. It was invisible and patient, and it was everywhere. 90% announced. We will have full penetration in 6 hours. 6 hours. By then the ultimatum would have expired. By then they would expect a response. They would get one, but not the kind they expected. In orbit around Mars, Commander paced his bridge. 24 hours remained and he had lost 20 drones without explanation. His officers were nervous. His crew whispered in the corridors. Something was wrong and no one knew what it was. Should we advance? Asked. Perhaps a show of force would. No, said. We stay in position. The ultimatum expires tomorrow. If they do not surrender, we will destroy them. He said the words with confidence, but inside, doubt was growing. He had conquered 37 species. He had never faced silence like this. He had never lost drones without knowing why. He had never looked at a planet and felt like he was the one being watched. The blue planet hung in his viewing screen, beautiful and quiet. It gave away nothing. It revealed nothing. It simply waited. And somewhere in the back of his mind, that small voice of warning spoke again. This time it was louder. Something was very wrong here, something he did not understand. He pushed the thought away and focused on his countdown. 24 hours, then this would all be over. He had no idea how right he was. 12 hours remained on the ultimatum when Commander made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He was tired of waiting. He was tired of silence. He was tired of watching his drones vanish without explanation. He needed answers, and he would get them even if it meant taking risks. Prepare the scout vessel Horizon, he ordered. I wanted to approach Earth's moon, close enough to scan the surface. Looked at him with concern. Commander, we have already lost 20 drones. Perhaps we should wait. I am done waiting, snapped. The Horizon has shields and weapons. It is not a drone. It can defend itself. The Horizon was a small ship with a crew of 300. It was fast and well-armed, designed for exactly this kind of mission. Its captain, a young officer named, received his orders without question. He had served the Dominion his entire life. He trusted his commanders. Within the hour, the Horizon departed the fleet and began its journey toward Earth's moon. On the dark side of the moon, Doctor watched the approaching ship with grim satisfaction. They took the bait, she said quietly. Virus upload complete, reported her assistant. We have full access to their systems. All of them. Every ship in the fleet. Navigation, weapons, communications, life support, everything. Nodded slowly. This was the moment they had been working toward. For 8 years, she and her team had studied alien technology captured from old crashed probes. They had learned how other species built their computers. They had found weaknesses that the aliens themselves did not know existed, and they had built a weapon that could exploit those weaknesses perfectly. The virus was now spread throughout the entire fleet. Every system on every ship was compromised. The aliens did not know it yet, but they had already lost. They just had not realized it. Wait for the Horizon to cross the threshold, said. Then activate. The Horizon passed the orbit of Earth's moon at exactly 14:32 Earth time. Captain watched the gray surface scroll beneath his ship and felt a moment of calm. Everything seemed normal. There were no energy readings, no weapon signatures, no sign of the mysterious force that had destroyed the drones. Perhaps the humans really were just primitive, he thought. Perhaps the drones had simply malfunctioned. Such things happened sometimes. Then his screens went dark. "What is happening?" he demanded. His officers did not answer. They were staring at their own consoles with expressions of confusion and fear. Lights flickered throughout the bridge. Alarms began to sound, then went silent. The engines, which had been humming steadily, suddenly stopped. "Report," shouted. "Systems failure," one of his officers managed to say. "All systems, we are losing everything." It was not a crash. It was not a malfunction. It was something far worse. The virus that had been sleeping in their computers for days suddenly woke up and took control. It shut down navigation. It disabled weapons. It locked the crew out of their own systems. And then it did something that no one expected. It began to overload the ship's power core. Realized what was happening in the final seconds. He reached for the emergency controls, but they did not respond. He tried to give orders, but the communications were dead. He looked out the viewport at the distant blue planet and understood with terrible clarity that he had been defeated by an enemy he never saw. The horizon exploded. From his flagship watched the blast with horror. 300 crew members gone in an instant, not destroyed by weapons fire, not hit by missiles, killed by their own ship turning against them. "What is happening?" he demanded. "What did this?" No one answered, no one knew. Then the alarm started. Every ship in the fleet began reporting problems at the same time. Navigation systems froze. Weapons refused to fire. Engine controls stopped responding. The virus that had destroyed the horizon was spreading through the entire fleet, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. "We are under attack," shouted one of his officers. "From where?" screamed. "I see no enemy, I see no weapons." The officer could not answer. The enemy was not outside. The enemy was inside. The enemy was everywhere. In the bunker beneath Earth, Colonel Menu watched the chaos unfold with quiet satisfaction. "All 40 ships are compromised," he reported. "They have no engines, no weapons, no navigation. They are dead in space." Admiral nodded slowly. He had waited 50 years for this moment. He had sacrificed everything, his time, his family, his peace of mind, to prepare for a day that might never come. Now it was here, and everything was working exactly as planned. "Begin Phase 2, he said calmly. Phase 2 was simple: send in the Marines. Sargent had been training for this mission since he was 18 years old. He was now 35, and he had spent more time in zero-gravity combat simulations than any other soldier on Earth. He knew how to breach a hull. He knew how to fight in the narrow corridors of a spaceship. He knew how to kill enemies who had never faced a human soldier. He stood in the cargo bay of a hidden military station, surrounded by 500 men and women who had trained just as hard as he had. They wore black armor that was designed to be invisible to alien sensors. They carried weapons that could cut through any material known to science. They were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. "Listen up," said as he checked his equipment one final time. "The enemy fleet is disabled. They cannot fight back. Our mission is to board the flagship, capture their commander, and secure the ship. We want them alive if possible, dead if necessary." His soldiers nodded. They had trained for this scenario hundreds of times. They knew exactly what to do. "Let's go." The drop pods launched from the station like bullets from a gun. They were small, just big enough for one soldier each, and they accelerated toward the fleet at speeds that would have killed anyone without the right equipment. Inside his pod, watched the flagship grow larger on his screen. They had conquered 37 species. They had never been boarded. They had never seen their ships invaded by an enemy. They had no defenses against this kind of attack because they had never imagined anyone would try it. Spod hit the hull of the flagship and burned through in seconds. He emerged into a corridor filled with smoke and confused aliens. They looked at him with eyes full of fear. They had never seen a human soldier before. They did not know what they were facing. Showed them. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. They were not cowards, but they were not prepared. Their weapons did not work. Their communications were down. They could not coordinate, could not plan, could not call for help. The human soldiers moved through the ship like ghosts, taking down anyone who resisted and capturing anyone who surrendered. Commander was found on the bridge, surrounded by his officers. He was holding a weapon, but his hands were shaking. He had conquered 37 species. He had never been on the losing side of a battle. He did not know how to process what was happening. Stepped forward, his own weapon raised. "Commander," he said through his translator, "you are under arrest. Drop your weapon." Stared at him. The human was small compared to but there was something in his eyes that had never seen before. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was certainty. This human knew he was going to win. He had known it from the beginning. Slowly lowered his weapon. "How?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you do this?" Did not answer. He simply stepped forward and secured the commander's hands. In orbit around Earth, the 40 ships of the mighty fleet drifted silently in space. Their crews were prisoners. Their weapons were useless. Their empire had just learned a lesson that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity did not make threats. Humanity did not give warnings. Humanity simply acted, and by the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already over. The silence had spoken louder than any ultimatum ever could. Captain had dreamed of flying since she was a little girl. She remembered watching the stars from the roof of her family home and wondering what was out there. She remembered joining the Air Force at 19 and becoming the youngest pilot in her unit at 22. She remembered being recruited into the secret space program at 25, and the moment she realized that everything she thought she knew about the world was wrong. Now she was 31, and she was leading an assault wing of 30 fighter craft toward the paralyzed fleet. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was calm. This was what she had trained for her entire adult life. "All wings check in," she said into her communicator. "Wing 2 ready," came the first response. "Wing 3 ready." "Wing 4 ready." 30 ships, each carrying the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. They had been hiding in the asteroid belt for 6 years, waiting for this moment. Now they moved through space like shadows, invisible to any sensor they possessed. "Target the flagship's engines first," ordered. "We want them completely immobile, then move to the secondary vessels. Disable but do not destroy unless necessary." "Understood, Captain." The flagship was a massive ship, nearly 2 kilometers long. It was designed to inspire fear, to make enemies surrender just by looking at it. But right now it was dark and helpless, drifting through space like a dying whale. Its engines were cold. Its weapons were silent. Its crew was trapped inside, waiting for something to happen. Gave the order, "Attack." The human fighters descended on the flagship like wolves on a wounded animal. Their weapons were not like anything they had ever seen. They did not fire energy beams or missiles. They fired concentrated pulses of electromagnetic force that could disable electronics without destroying the ship itself. The goal was not to kill. The goal was to capture. Inside the flagship, Commander heard the impacts against his hull. He was sitting in a holding cell, guarded by 2 human soldiers, waiting to learn his fate. The sounds of battle reached him through the walls, muffled but unmistakable. "Your people are thorough," he said to one of the guards. The guard, a young man with cold eyes, did not respond. He simply watched with the same expression of calm certainty that all the humans seemed to share. Had spent the last several hours trying to understand what had happened. He had commanded the most powerful fleet in this sector of the galaxy. He had weapons that could destroy cities. He had experience that stretched back decades, and he had been defeated in a matter of hours by a species that was supposed to be primitive. "How long have you been preparing for this?" he asked. This time the guard answered, 50 years. 50 years. Let that number sink in. 50 years of silence. 50 years of hiding. 50 years of building weapons and training soldiers and waiting for the day when someone would try to conquer them. "You knew we were coming," said. "It was not a question." "We knew someone would come," the guard said. "We just did not know when or who, so we prepared for everyone." Outside the ship, Captain completed her attack run and banked away to assess the damage. The flagship's engines were completely disabled now. The ship was not going anywhere without a tow. "All wings status report," she called. "Wing 2 complete, 3 secondary vessels disabled. Wing 3 complete, 4 vessels disabled. Wing 4 complete, 2 vessels attempting to flee, pursuing now. 2 ships trying to run. Was not surprised. When a fleet is destroyed, some always try to escape, but these ships were not going anywhere. Their engines were crippled by the same virus that had taken down the rest of the fleet. They could move, but only slowly, and the weapon platforms hidden in the asteroid belt were already tracking them. "Let them go," said. "The belt will handle them." Sure enough, within minutes, both fleeing ships went dark. The automated defense systems had done their job. No one was leaving this system without permission. On Earth, Admiral watched the battle from the command center. He stood with his hands behind his back, his face showing no emotion, but inside he felt something he had not felt in a very long time: pride. "All 40 vessels are secured," reported Colonel Menu. "Casualties are minimal. We have captured over 12,000 prisoners." "And the commander?" "Sergeant has him in custody on the flagship. He is asking to speak with whoever is in charge." Nodded slowly. "Then I should not keep him waiting." An hour later, arrived on the flagship via a shuttle that had been disguised as a civilian transport. He walked through the corridors of the alien ship with 2 guards beside him, stepping over debris and around groups of captured soldiers. The ship smelled strange, like metal and something organic that he could not identify. It was the smell of a dying empire. He found in the commander's quarters, which had been converted into a temporary cell. The alien was sitting on a chair that was too small for his large frame, staring at the wall with empty eyes. When entered, he looked up. "You are the leader?" asked. "I am Admiral," said. "I command Earth's defense forces." "Defense forces," laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You call this defense? You destroyed my fleet without firing a single visible weapon. You boarded my ships with soldiers we could not even detect. You captured me in my own command chair. This is not defense. This is—" He paused, searching for the right word. "This is something else." Did not respond. He simply stood there, watching the alien commander with the same calm expression he had worn throughout the entire battle. "Why did you not respond to our ultimatum?" finally asked. "We gave you 72 hours. You said nothing. You did nothing. We thought you were paralyzed with fear." "We did respond," said quietly. Frowned. "No, we received nothing. Our communications were open. We were waiting." "We did respond," repeated. "You just were not listening." The words hung in the air between them, stared at the human admiral, and slowly, understanding began to dawn. The virus, the hidden weapons, the soldiers who appeared from nowhere, all of it had started the moment the ultimatum was received. The humans had not been silent because they were afraid. They had been silent because they were already attacking. "The message," whispered. "When we sent the ultimatum, you sent something back." "A small acknowledgement signal," confirmed. "Standard protocol when receiving a transmission. You probably did not even notice it, but inside that signal was everything we needed to take control of your ships." Closed his eyes. All this time he had thought he was the hunter. He had thought the humans were prey, helpless and waiting to be devoured. But from the very first moment, he had been the one who was trapped. "What happens now?" he asked. Turned toward the viewport. Outside, the blue planet hung in the darkness, beautiful and bright. "Now," he said, "we have a conversation, but not the kind you expected." Did not know what that meant. But as he looked at the human admiral, at the quiet confidence in his eyes and the steel in his voice, he realized that the Dominion had made a terrible mistake. They had come to conquer a primitive species. They had found something far more dangerous. And now the galaxy would learn what that meant. 3 weeks passed after the battle, and the galaxy had no idea what had happened. The Dominion waited for word from their invasion fleet. They sent messages to Commander. They tried to contact any of the 40 ships. Nothing came back. Just silence, the same silence that had greeted from Earth. In the capital city of the Dominion, the High Council met to discuss the situation. They were the most powerful leaders of one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. They had ruled for 800 years. They had conquered countless worlds. They did not understand what was happening. "Perhaps they were delayed," suggested one council member. "For 3 weeks," said another. "No, something has gone wrong. Should we send another fleet?" Before anyone could answer, a technician rushed into the chamber. He was pale and shaking, holding a data tablet like it might explode. "High Council," he said, his voice trembling. "We have received a transmission from the Sol system." "From Commander." "No," the technician swallowed hard. "From the humans." The council fell silent. Every eye turned to the large screen at the center of the chamber as the technician activated the transmission. The screen flickered, and then 3 figures appeared. An older man in a military uniform, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes, and another woman in a white coat who looked like she had not slept in weeks. Behind them, visible through a large window, was the blue planet Earth. "I am Admiral," said the older man. "This is Defense Minister and Doctor, the lead scientist of our defense program. We are addressing the leadership of the Dominion." The council members stared at the screen in shock. These were the primitives. These small, soft creatures had somehow stopped Commander. "3 weeks ago," continued, "you sent 40 warships to our system with a demand for surrender. You gave us 72 hours to submit. We did not respond with words. We responded with action." The screen changed to show images of the captured fleet. The great warships were floating in orbit around Earth, surrounded by human vessels. Their weapons had been removed. Their engines had been replaced. They were no longer instruments of conquest. They were trophies. "Your fleet has been captured," said. "Your commander and over 12,000 of your soldiers are our prisoners. They have been treated well and will be returned to you in time. But first, we want to make something very clear." The image changed again. Now it showed star maps, detailed and accurate maps of space. Every colony was marked. Every defense station was identified. Every supply line was traced in glowing red. "We have been watching you for a long time," said. "Long before you knew we existed. We have sent probes to your systems. We have studied your technology. We have mapped your territory down to the smallest detail." In the council chamber, several members rose from their seats in alarm. This was impossible. They had the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy. No probe could have escaped their notice. But the maps on the screen were accurate. They showed things that only the Dominion leadership should know. "You came to our system expecting to find a helpless species," continued. "You expected us to beg for mercy or die trying to fight. You expected the same outcome you have achieved 37 times before." He paused, and his eyes seemed to look directly at each council member. "You were wrong." The screen now showed Commander sitting in a clean cell with proper food and water. He looked tired but unharmed. He looked into the camera and spoke. "Everything they say is true," said. "I was defeated in hours. My entire fleet was captured without losing a single human city. They had weapons I could not see. They had soldiers I could not stop. They had technology that made ours look like children's toys." He paused. "Do not send another fleet. You will only lose it." The transmission returned to, and "We are not sending this message as a threat," said. "We are sending it as a warning. We have no desire to conquer you. We have no plans to invade your territory. We simply want to be left alone." Minister stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. "However," she said, "if you send another fleet to our system, we will not wait for an ultimatum. We will not give you 72 hours. We will not give you silence. We will respond immediately, and we will respond with everything we have." Doctor was the last to speak. She looked exhausted, but there was fire in her eyes. "Your virus protection is useless against us," she said. "Your shields are useless against us. Your weapons are useless against us. We spent 50 years preparing for you, and we will spend the next 50 years preparing for whoever comes next. You are welcome to test us if you wish, but I promise you will not enjoy the results." The three humans stood together, united and unafraid. Behind them, Earth glowed blue and bright, surrounded by the captured fleet now flying human colors. "This is our home," said. "We will protect it. We will defend it. We will do whatever is necessary to ensure its survival, and we will never, ever respond to threats with surrender." He straightened his shoulders. "That is humanity's answer to your ultimatum. We hope you understand it." The transmission ended. In the council chamber, no one spoke for a very long time. The Dominion had conquered 37 species over 800 years. They had never lost a fleet. They had never faced an enemy they could not defeat. They had never been so completely and utterly humiliated. Finally, the oldest member of the council, a veteran of countless wars, spoke. "Remove the Sol system from all military maps," he said quietly. "Mark it as forbidden territory. No ship is to approach within 10 light years." "But sir," protested a younger member, "we cannot simply—" "We can," the old veteran said, "and we will. Did you not hear them? They know where our colonies are. They know where our supply lines are. They have technology we cannot detect and weapons we cannot stop. If we attack them again, they will not just defend themselves. They will come for us." The council was silent again. The veteran was right. They had seen the maps. They had heard the captured commander. The humans were not bluffing. "Mark the Sol system as forbidden," the veteran repeated, "and pray that they meant what they said about wanting to be left alone." On Earth, Admiral turned off the transmission and let out a slow breath. He was standing in the same command center where, 3 weeks ago, he had given the order to go silent. So much had happened since then. So much had changed. "Do you think they will listen?" asked Minister. "For now," said, "but there are other empires out there. Other species who think they can conquer anyone they find. We but we must be ready for whoever comes next." Doctor nodded tiredly. "The next generation of defenses is already in development. Better ships, better weapons, better technology. We will be ready." "We always will be," said. He walked to the window and looked out at the sky. Somewhere up there, the captured fleet was being repaired and refitted. Somewhere up there, hidden satellites continued to watch and listen. Somewhere up there, humanity's secret guardians stood ready to defend their home against any threat. The galaxy had thought humanity was primitive. The galaxy had thought humanity was weak. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humans did not announce their strength. They did not make threats or give warnings. They simply prepared in silence and struck when the time was right. And by then, it was always too late. Smiled slightly as he watched the stars. "Let them come," he thought, "whoever they are, whatever they bring. We will be ready." And this time they knew it.